live with Scott Frazier.
Let's
So
go. Let's go, people. Jordan, I'm
he's
pumped to
excited
be
to
here.
go. He's excited to go. And to give a little bit of context, even just like before we start asking the questions, I met Scott
Yeah,
uh, through a cohort from Darian's cohort, and I saw one of his
yeah,
posts that went viral, at least through our cohort, of everything that he was doing for social
yeah,
selling, posting, and getting inbound leads, getting inbound, and then doing cold outreach as well. So we're really excited to talk about that and how
yeah.
we can do that on LinkedIn. So excited to have you here, Scott.
I'm pumped. I know you're like, what do people typically say? Like, long time listener, first time caller. Like that's what I feel like. That's what I feel like I gotta say now. I'm so pumped to be here. I'm excited to learn. I mean, these things always crack me up because I feel like I'm such a still so new to everything, and and that I've seen so much of your work across as we've gotten to know each other in all these different, just being multi-channel and having such influence across different verticals. So I'm excited to also just have a conversation on the similarities, the differences, and then how the heck do I grow on those platforms as
No,
well.
nice. I mean, just like I was telling Scott just like a few minutes ago on in the backstage, that yeah, I'm from like the Instagram world and Facebook world, and then I had like three posts go viral, and then from that,
Right.
I got like a good amount of inbound leads, and then I'm like, okay, let me just take this exact same thing that I did on Instagram to LinkedIn, and it's absolutely not the case at
Yeah.
all. Because now I'm like, let me just wait for posts to go viral here, and then all the leads will come in. And then it's been like, we've been having like some leads come in, but it's been nowhere near to Instagram and Facebook level. So,
It's a different beast. I
mm,
mean, LinkedIn, it's a totally different social channel. The medium is different, the delivery is different, the expectation from the community is different, right? And you know, I totally agree. I think a lot of people have that same mentality though of, hey, I'm going to bring over this same thing that have worked. But you see that even the big names that transition over, like even if they're big names, it takes some time to like settle into the channel and to be able to really create momentum. Because I'm sure there's a drive at some point that you're not needing to do as much, but at the beginning especially, it just doesn't translate the
yeah. So
same.
I mean, can we start from the beginning too? So Scott, give
Yeah, let's do
give
it.
us like a little bit of background about yourself. Where'd you come from? Where did you work? And then how did you get
Yeah.
to LinkedIn and social selling on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're like, I just wrote about this the other day of just like the unconventional path. Like my path doesn't make, I could not imagine. That's why I was talking to Amy Misnick, who's an incredible follow. If you're not following her on LinkedIn, she's amazing. But we were just talking about like how unconventional the path has been, for me of like, I started out, my family, my dad was a business owner and my mom was a school teacher, but was always doing side hustles, like training people, coaching people. So it was just around it my whole life. And so went into the family business, which was industrial distribution. So did that right out of college. And then I was in nonprofit work for a long time after we sold that in I guess it was 2012. And then we went straight from that to like the most random pivot ever, which was like nonprofit work into kind of real estate, private equity world. Started another nonprofit, and then eventually kind of ended up in entrepreneurship over the last 5-6 years. And that's when we started Freed Up, which is our kind of EA staffing, right, and systems building company. And social selling was literally, it was all my co-founder knew Darren previously when they lived in North Carolina. And so he's like, hey, there's this guy named Darren. So we just jumped on a call with Darren, and Darren was like, oh, your profile's terrible. Like he's just like fleecing me up and down immediately, in the best way though. And then after that, we went to, I was like just following him, and then I was like, I got to learn how to do it. So then I jumped in the cohort like 11 months ago. So almost a year now. It was September of a year ago, and then it's been gangbusters since then. Just like going all in with social selling, specifically on LinkedIn over the last
Yeah,
year.
and for those of you who don't know what social selling is, do you mind talking a little bit about it, Scott?
I was just thinking about that. I was looking at some of our questions earlier that
I
you were
think I
asking.
should start off with that one
Yeah, it's no, no, no. I think starting the origin story is probably good, right? You're like, and then being able to advance the conversation. But I think it's the you know selling of products, services, through social channels. I think it's the most simplistic form, right? It's all things sales simply through social channels, right? So convincing people to buy your product, service, whatever you're offering, um, explicitly through, right, social channels. So whether that be Instagram, Facebook Meta, like you were talking about, LinkedIn. And I think, you see guys like Darren, people that are really pioneering this, in those spaces. And so it's been, and I'm relatively new to it. I mean, all my sales before this, Jordan, were like, not this way. It was like old school when I was like with my dad, like we go drive in the truck, shake hands, go hang out with customers for a long period of time. Or we had, you're like, I know, Jordan, you're Canada,
Yeah,
right?
Canada.
Canada based. So I don't even know if you guys, like, Home Improvement, was that even like a show people watched
Oh, with the Tim
in
Allen?
Canada?
Yeah.
Tim
I
Allen?
lived in New Jersey actually for 2 years, so we would watch it often.
Okay, so yeah. So you know a little bit. Yeah, so like that was my world, was like Home Improvement style, right? We had a counter, and then all my other selling was more cold calling or, email outreach, right? This idea of building brand and building social credibility and then being able to sell explicitly from the platform was so new to me. But I mean, how do you define it? I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to the pro. You're talking to like the amateur over here.
I don't even have like a solid definition for it because I just joined. And also, for those of you who don't know what the cohort is, by the way, which you keep mentioning,
That's true.
this cohort's basically like a social selling cohort where we have somebody called
Yes.
Darren, and Darren's been teaching us a lot about how to properly use LinkedIn to reach out to people, to connect with people, to post. I think what Scott was saying about his profile, that I think Darren just like totally ripped you a new one with the profile.
Yeah, totally. He was like, "What? I don't even know what you're doing here." And it's like, oh, immediate shame. You're like, "Oh, okay. Tell me what I need to do." But shout out Darren
Yeah,
McKee.
he's
We
great,
love you.
and that's what I mean. Like, so all of us are just collaborating on how to like understand LinkedIn and how it works. But no, like, if you're asking me for my definition of social selling, I had honestly like
Yeah.
no idea what it was supposed to be. I just assumed it was like sending templated messages on LinkedIn, and then just blasting them out in a cannon and then hoping somebody replies. And
Just hope it like what we call spray and pray. Like just like you're like put it out there and just see what happens and like pray that someone actually finds
and
it useful.
I did that because I started in January and I wasn't doing anything like near
Okay.
to what Darren was saying. I was posting consistently, probably like 4 times,
Yeah.
and then I was like occasionally commenting, and that was like the extent of what I was doing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then like months passed by, and I'm like, okay, just give it a sec. I'm gonna start seeing like inbound leads come in. Give it a sec, and then like nothing happened, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. So one of the clients that we work with, great news, he became like a millionaire this week, and I was like, how do you do it? Like, how are you doing this? And,
That's amazing.
And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, the best advice I can give to you is get a coach. And he's like, it saved me so much time.
Seriously.
So I came across Darren just through a podcast that he was on, and
That's so
and
cool.
he was just talking all about like LinkedIn, and one of the big things too. This is like a long way to answer your question, I guess.
No, you're good. Hey, keep it going. I'm like, you're on
So
fire.
one of
Keep
the
it going.
big things was that I'm like, I don't mind. Like, I'm fine with putting in the work to whatever it is. But there's
Sure.
a thing of like, you can work hard but still do the wrong thing at the same time. And I think that's what I was doing.
Yes.
Because I was spending so much time on these posts, like catering them, finding how well they were going to be. And I'm like, that's not the LinkedIn game at all.
Right.
So Darren literally said, and this is one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you about too, which were the video DMs. So I saw
Yes.
Darren in like the end of a podcast, and he basically said, just send 5 to 6 video DMs to your ideal clients per day, and then just watch your demo, watch your calendars get booked up. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I don't mind. I have no issue doing this every day, but like as long as I'm doing like the right thing, I'll do this for like months. I'll do it for years.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Totally. If you see, if you know that like it's moving towards, right, you have some momentum. Because I think what gets hard is, what do they say? The definition of insanity is like doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, right? And so I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is when you do feel that frustration of like, hey, I'm doing this and nothing's working. And there's a difference of the frustration of like, it takes time for your work in the right direction to produce results, right? The compounding effect of like good work, right? Versus what you're talking about is like, you don't want to do the wrong thing though. Like, cause you could work hard, but be doing it incorrectly for the platform and it not generate the results you want versus, hey, I'm building in the way that's sustainable, that works on the platform and that people will actually be responsive to. And I think that's the differentiation, right? Of, especially with LinkedIn, and Darren's dead on. I mean, the thing that really shifted was, you know, and people always talk about this, right? Like it begins with the great prep, right? Around like, because I think, you know, and you probably see this in your work too, that everybody thinks they know their ICP and they really don't, right? You're like, so the two coaches I had during this time were, one was Darren McKee, right? Who we both know now. And then there was another guy named Chris Ray, who was the sales founder, like the founding sales guy. You should have him on these conversations. He's incredible. He was a 4-time founding sales leader, like starting companies. He was the one that helped Ryan Serhant, right, who Darren was just on his webinar. He was like, I want to say he was, golly, he like built the sales side of Ryan's speaking business. And so these kind of two coaching me together, you know, really working on, you need to go deeper in your ICP, right? So getting into Sales Navigator, spending, you know, or whatever your CRM is, maybe. It didn't matter where you're, you know, maybe you're pulling from Apollo or you're pulling from Zoom Info or whatever it is, but you're in there and you're like actually knowing who you're chasing, right? Like I think that, and now you're doing like deep ICP research for, you know, whether, depending on what your role is, like, I think, Jordan, you probably see this too. As a founder, it's way different than if I'm a sales leader, right? Like, even though I'm kind of overseeing biz dev, you're like, I also have recruiting and finance, and there's all these other customer success. So you're like, I'm almost jealous sometimes of people that are just selling, like Darren. I'm like, man, what would it be like to go ham for 20 hours a week on this platform alone? But, you know, for a founder that's doing 10 hours, you know, maybe let's say 5 to 10 hours a week on it, right? You're like, looking at deep ICP research of who are they, who do we have connections with? Can I ask someone for an introduction first, right? Because you're like, that may be it. Hey, can you introduce me on LinkedIn first, right? Like having that mutual connection. But then really, then deep diving in regards to the DMs, you know? And so what do you want to talk about in regards to, I wanted to say that first because I think people are like, if I just go blast people with DMs, I'm like, no. You have to know your ideal client profile, ICP, well, and have done the research, or then you're going to end up doing what everybody else has done, which is just like Jordan, do you respond to generic messages that hit you? I mean, how many
I was just going to say that.
And messages do you get?
Like, sometimes it even annoys me too, because I'm like, you did no research on who I am, what I do, and I'm just like a copy and paste template.
Yes, I'm like, look, the bar is so low right now. I'm like, please just look, even if it's 5 minutes, if you just looked at my profile, looked at like my top 2 posts, looked at my about section, looked at my banner, you would know. I love people that are like, hey, you know, I hate the templated stuff where it's like, I don't mind people using templates on like large scale, right, outreach stuff that you're, you know, different strategies. I'm not dogging those. I'm just going, in LinkedIn specifically, you need to do a little bit of research so you know, because it kills me when people are like, I run an EA agency, EH staffing, and they're like, I get messages, they're like, hey, you look like you need an EA. And you're like, I this is what I do for a living. Like, I staff EAs with executives. Why are you selling me on my same product, right? Yeah. And so you have to do that pre-work, right? The best kind of discovery, you know, prep, and then transition to really catered messaging, right? And so what do you want to talk about in regards to the video DM? I don't want to just get rambly, trying to be more tactical.
Let me introduce like the post as well that you put that like really caught my attention, which was I'll read just like one small section out loud where you basically said that you got 1 million impressions, you got 400,000 members reached, you got 22,000 engagements, and then you got 5,000 new followers through 11 months of doing this strategy. But what really caught my eye was like, it's great to have like these metrics, but then if you're not having like the revenue, then it's all for nothing. And you addressed that too. And you said, and I didn't even list the best number, over 600,000 in new revenue through social selling. So what I really want to go into is like just establishing that at the very beginning, that it's like, the vanity metrics are vanity for a reason, because it looks really nice on the resume. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
if you're not like getting revenue, then like there's no point in this. So
Yeah, what's the point?
so let's talk
Yeah.
a little bit, like just first starting off of like, let's say who your ICP was, and then how you
Yeah.
structured these messages to send them out daily.
Yeah. Yeah, so, for us, we knew that, we had this really deep niche, right? Like executive assistants. And what we saw was the challenges in the market were that people were either, starting to do remote staffing, international staffing, but the challenges were whether you've read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, shout out to Dan Martell, or, looking at, or Michael Hyatt, right, who's really big in the States in regards to like systems and structures and, or even if you're a traction user, right, elevate to or delegate to elevate, right, those kind of tools, where people realize that okay, there's a gap though in that people need help building the systems to make sure that their EA relationship as an executive works, right? And so we understood that like, all right, now the ICP gets more clear, where it's hey, they got to be an executive, they have to be doing multiple million in revenue because they actually have to be able to justify. Even though I think, like, of course I'm going to say this, but I'm just going to quote Dan Martell, right? That like your first hire should be your EA because your value is not in the hiring, your value is in your time, right? I would tell you the same thing, that like the X factor of your business is not the next hire, though that may be important. The X factor in your business is that you're freed up to be great at what you're great at, right? Like when an executive's like, I'm in my emails 20 hours a week, or I'm doing $15 task when my hourly is like 250, you're going, that's a bad exchange of value, right? And your time. And so we started realizing, all right, we're chasing executives, we're chasing multiple million in revenue. That's typically going to be, teams anywhere. They got to be bigger than probably a small business though most of the time, right? They're like, they got to probably have, you think about like Sales Nav, you're like, okay, they're going to have 20 to 50, people. And then I really started like local, hey, who's in Austin that fits this demographic, whether startup founder, and really, so much of you is selling, you're selling to yourself, right? So I was like, okay, I'm looking for the guys that are, moms and dads that are in their late 30s to early 40s that have probably been in this business for a handful of years, so you show stability. And then, but they have kids, right? That was a big thing I was chasing, because what happens when, who I was before kids is way different. Now I've got 4, which is insane, okay? But what happens is you start getting pulled, right? Like our origin story was so much of like, man, I want to be a present dad. And I had a season where I wasn't a present dad. I wasn't, I was always on my phone. I was always, building the next deal, chasing the next deal. And I just wanted to have balance, right? So I ended up selling to myself, but it made it really easy of like, all right, I'm looking for people that are about this age, in this role, doing this much revenue, right? Like it got really clear, that have kids. So you had to do some research of like, I'm going to go find you on Facebook outside of LinkedIn, or I'm going to go find you, can I see that? And then I can sell to that, right? And so that was kind of how, like, for us, what I began to look for around that ICP. And then, I think, and I just want to highlight this point too, and I'm going to try to, look, I've done the podcast over and over again, so I started having this mental clock in my head around how long I've talked.
You're good.
And so then I'll
You're
volley
good.
it back to you. But, it was that, after you get like the ICP, that's so clear, and you're dead on about the vanity metrics, by the way. Like, look, there's nothing wrong with building brand and having a reach, but reach means nothing without influence and impact, right? It's like all these, that's why you're like, Darren and I talk about this a lot, that you have these people that are, maybe have massive reach, whether it's on TikTok or whatever, but you're like, how many of your followers trust you and actually would buy from you, right? Because the crazy thing is, to be honest, you're like, when I was texting Darren, I was like, I actually lowered the number. All of my selling, I can attribute, I think we're sitting at like 1.4 million ARR right now, right? From like 12 month to 12 month. I would say 100% of my selling has been social, right? Like even my personal networks, hearing them say, oh yeah, I've been watching you write about this on LinkedIn. So even though I maybe did a cold outreach, or I just called them up, or it was a referral, right, from one client to another, everybody almost, let's give it maybe a softer number that's not like absolute, but like 90% of the, let's say almost 2 million I've sold over the last 3 years explicitly from social selling, right? And so I think that's the difference between, I'd rather have 5,000 followers that where like, 30% will buy from you versus 10,000, but no one will, right? Like, what's the point of chasing vanity if it doesn't create real impact or influence in your business or in your life, period, right? And so I think like just so you're dead on about like vanity versus actual impact, which I think you have to. I tell everybody this: look, if you're tracking your social numbers, track revenue, right? Like revenue explicitly attached to your social selling, because you're like, otherwise, what are you actually chasing for? Like just brand to have brand? It's like, no, you want the right brand with the right followers that want to actually engage with you, And so I think that's a big deal right now. So you're dead on about vanity metrics and just highlighting the ICP journey, right? But I think, what about you? I mean, are you seeing that in regards to, and then we can talk about the video DMs explicitly and how that the ICP really shaped the languaging. But are you seeing that at all? Like, what's this look like on the other platforms, right? Like when I think about how are you approaching those, and then what's different about LinkedIn for you around, especially someone who knows so much about the space?
We're pretty much making the entire shift now over to LinkedIn, because it's like what you said. It was great to see the numbers go up of like followers on Instagram and Facebook, but the funny thing is, and I don't know if this is like a controversial statement, but we'll see.
I'm here for it.
I think a lot of people on Instagram, like that have like these massive followers, they don't have good revenue attached to those followers as well. Like there's a lot of people that have like hundreds of thousands of followers that need to get a day job as well.
Totally. But no one's talking about that, right? Like no one's saying, oh, hey, by the way, I lead sales, or I do sales at this company, at this startup. They just explicitly show the side of their business that looks lifestyle, right? But you're like, you didn't get that lifestyle just through Instagram. You got that lifestyle because you have a sales job that has a lot of flexibility and you're posting a lot, right? And so I think that it's easier on some level to kind of play the part on Instagram and Meta. I think it's way harder to play the part on LinkedIn, where people see your credibility. They know what your jobs are. They know what you've done. They know what you've built or what you haven't built, right? And so I think that like there's so much more reciprocity and authenticity on LinkedIn, even though I know LinkedIn gets a lot of crap in Reddit blogs about like people bragging and all this stuff. But I think it's like, it's because they're social selling, right? Like what you call bragging or what you call like you dogging these people is actually just social selling, like actually just doing it effectively on a different platform.
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't think it's controversial. I 100%, and if it is, I 100% agree with your controversial take.
As a true Texas fan.
That is true. But do you think that like, is that when you're approaching this and you think about the video, how about you when you're thinking through ICP? What are you thinking about in your business?
So
I'm
that
just
was
curious
the next
to know.
thing that I was going to say, that even when it comes to the ICP, so the reason why we're like making the full shift now from Instagram to LinkedIn is because it's so hard to find like the exact ICP, and we were so broad, so we were trying to get like all the eyeballs from everybody and be like, okay, eventually one of them is going to convert.
Right.
But when you don't specialize at anything, and people on LinkedIn, on Instagram also do this like very well. Maybe it was just me who like messed it up, but people can like specialize way better on LinkedIn from how I see it than on Instagram.
Yes.
And we had we had leads coming in, and it was like mostly like 99% inbound leads from the content that I was creating, and then just like a link in bio, hey, we do marketing. But at the same time, like they were kind of wanting like a Frankenstein product. They're like, okay, you do marketing, can you do like email marketing, can you do Google, can you do Facebook, can you do X, Y, and Z? And then when you're creating like this like Frankenstein product and you're not really specializing in something, you also have you're exhausted from like running this company and like doing a la carte products, and at the same time your churn rate also goes up because you're not specialized in anything. So it's the churn is insane. So that's why we decided to make the whole shift onto LinkedIn, so we can specialize, dominate one area, and actually like build these more authentic connections.
Totally going, hey, like we do marketing for LinkedIn, right? Or we do marketing for, and just I think that, like the targeting like through Sales Nav, like, we were working through that. I mean, I would tell everybody, everybody always asks me, like, should I get Sales Navigator? And I'm like, look, it can be a little clunky. I know the UX is not like always the best, but I'm like, it is so practical. I can look at, I want them in this role for this long, in this city, in this section, to have this size of business that, or like Darren was talking about, like if you're selling into like marketing and you're looking at for the specific person, especially if you're doing like, big multi-month sales cycles, right? That like, that little, nugget of if a person has been there for less than a year in that role, that they're more likely to say yes to you, right? Than somebody who's been there for 10 years. Because people that have been there for 10 years, they're set in their ways. So I can go look and go, all right, let's look at everybody who's raised, I can go to like Built in Austin and go like, who's raised a Series A in Austin? Give me 100 names, right? Scrape that and then bring it over and go, all right, here's my list. And then I'm going to go put that list in LinkedIn and I'm going to go look at these people. Show me who's been there for less than a year. All right, now I've got these 7 people. Now I'm going to go target those 7 people and actually sell to them explicitly, right? And that's so much more targeted than I think you can get on, Instagram or, on Meta. You just can't, I just feel like you can't get that same, like you said, a lot of outbound, a lot of people showing up, but not really knowing, are they a good fit or the churn rate, all that kind of stuff. You're like, no, you can sell it and then people stick with you. I mean, most of our sales, once we got our ICP dialed in, like I was looking at this data before I was like, I made sure I knew what I was talking about before I jumped on the call with you. But I was like, once we had like a higher churn rate, over 2 years at the beginning when it was like, we didn't know our ICPs clearly, right? But one of the best things too is when you start to get a lot of reps in the space, you start realizing every iterative dynamic of that, it compounds to greater understanding of your ICP, right? Because then you can look at your clients and go, of the clients I have, why did they stick? What are they here for? What do they love about what we're selling or what we're saying, right? And really doing a good job of asking your clients, hey, why are you sticking around? What do you love about what we're building? What do you love, right? And being curious about the clients and making sure that they're like satisfied, and then being able to do like exit. If people are willing, I mean, usually churn is they're not thrilled, but if you can get the exit interviews, right, of like, hey, what could we have done better? And then but a lot of that realizing is we churn not because we didn't have a good product. We churned because we sold to the wrong people, right? And I think that is so big of like, man, you get to hone in and sell to the right people that absolutely are amped to buy your product or service. Then all of a sudden you're like, there's greater synergy. It's easier, like you just vibe easier together. And that selling is just so much easier, right? Because then you start doing it and then it becomes rote. It becomes almost repetitive, right? That you're like, I know what to say to this specific client base that will make them seem compelled by our offer, right? And so I think that's a big piece of it, right? Because I think when I look back we have less than 10% churn when we had the right ICP, right? And then even of the churn, it was like, the churn was more, something catastrophic happened in the business, right? Which totally made sense. But like super low churn rate once we had the ICP dialed in, So I think that's a big piece of it,
That's a good point. And right before because we do have to dive into the DMs because I really, really...
I know. I'm like, we haven't even talked about what we said we wanted to talk about yet.
The last thing I want to ask before I dive into the DMs and the strategy behind it is... How specific did you get your ICP, and how did you know that like maybe I'm getting a little bit too specific with my ICP?
No, you're good. No, it was like a lot of it was just getting reps. Like I think that's you talked about this, right, Jordan? I loved your post the other day when you were like, I am determined to get this right. Like I am determined to build on LinkedIn. I'm gonna do it.
It was late and it was a little bit. It was a little intense. It was like 2 a.m. As you can have seen with the photo.
Sometimes that's the best post though, right? You're like, it's the most authentic voice. You're like, it's no BS. You're like a little bit more unfiltered, right? And sometimes those are our best posts. Just pure raw emotion on the page, But I think that was what happened a lot was it really was just shots on goal, right? That like you get a lot of reps, and we got even clearer and clearer and clearer where I could look and go, goodness, a founder that had been there for 7 to 10 years, right? And I was like looking, and then all of a sudden you look at like Sales Navigator, where I knew, hey, this is who we're crushing it with, right? Which was always founders that had like, anywhere from 5 to 10 years of their business, so they were more stable. They were, had anywhere from 5 to 20 person staff, right? So they had already understood what it meant to staff people. They already understood what they were looking for. And then honestly, one of my favorite things was asking in discovery, like whether I was pinging back and forth on LinkedIn or email, was just going, hey, have you ever used an EA before? And people that had, but had failed were like my favorite people to go after, because I was like, hey, the reason you failed was this, right? Like, I mean, you probably see this in marketing. We're like, hey, we've tried other agencies and it just hasn't worked. And you're like, well, here's why it hasn't worked. Because you have enough reps in the space to go, here's what we do differently. That's our moat. That makes us different and more compelling than other people, right? Let's use that. And so the ICP got really defined. So I'll tell people, anybody that's building anywhere, to like work on, and Jordan, I'll send you, I have a document of like what we walk through to find the ICP, and I'll send it to you. It's amazing. It's like 2 pages long of just like question after question after question, going deeper, deeper, deeper. And then you're selling to one real person, right? That's like, it is kind of our clear, if I could build one, this is the person, right? But it just got clear over a lot of reps, a lot of failing, right? And I think that's what you and I both talked about, like, but being insatiably curious to go deeper with people, right? Like, don't just be content selling. Be insatiably curious about the person you're selling to, right? Because like, I think in sales, we totally get kind of like, horses that have like the blinders, right? Like, I just got to sell, 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 versus going, how can I be curious to problem solve and to know people and their pain points? So it's like, I have to know the pain point really well. So am I like well versed in the industry I'm selling to, right? Do I have good language and good copy that I've crafted over time that I'm excited about, that is really compelling, and I have a lot of reps to give me the reality of does it work or not? And then then once we close, am I content with just closing? Or am I essentially curious that client success is also a part of sales, because I want them to stick around, right? And so like, I think we have to broaden in sales a little bit more of like, make sure you're working, if you have a bigger corporate structure team, that you're working with client success, right? And following up with those calls. Like, don't just sell and be done. Call those people, ask them what's going well, ask them what's not going well. And then I think like, as you have those conversations, the irony is the compounding power of your selling is gonna get just only stronger. It doesn't get weaker by knowing your clients, right? And so I think that's a big piece that's often misunderstood and not talked about very much.
And it's like, again, it was the same issue that I started off with, that I'm like, no, I'll just do everything for everyone as long as they pay me. And it's like,
Oh, totally. Well, look, like cash is green no matter where you are, or I guess maybe like digital now, but you're like, it is early stage. You are selling to anybody who say yes, right? But you realize that, no, you're like, if you're selling to everyone, you're selling to no one. Right? And I think that's I didn't think that was true at the beginning of the journey. And now I'm like, it's not that you're not selling to no one, because I had a lot of people say yes, and a lot of people pay me money to do it, but like, those people never stuck around. So better, more clear people and ICP that I'm chasing led to better sales. So it's not that like, if you're selling to everyone, you're selling to no one. That's not true, because most of us in sales know I can get people to say yes. But if you're selling everything to everyone, they'll probably not stick with you though. And I think that's the difference, right? Is clear ICP, clear sales process and structure will lead to more consistent, more stable sales relationships, right? Yeah. So I'm with you. I think I did that at the beginning too. I mean, a lot of our churn was in year one, because I just said anybody that would give me a shot, I was like, thank you God, right? And you're like, yes, the sales gods are looking down on me and we're fine. But I think you're dead on. So yeah, chasing that, knowing who you are actually selling to is so big, 100%.
So now the DM part.
All right, now we're talking about video DMs.
Now let's get to the video DMs. So tell me about your strategy. Do you Darren's strategy where it's like you go outside, go for a walk, have your phone and talk? And
yes.
How many were you doing? Were you doing them every single day for 11 months? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And the follow-ups.
Yeah, so like I did the same. Yeah, no, I'm no like that. I'm a big fan of, especially for all the sales leaders that listen to you, that like following you in this process, right? They're like, hey, the easiest thing is not to reinvent the wheel. The easiest thing is find a playbook that works and then make it your own as you go, right? I think there's so many people that like, especially salespeople, right? We like to think that we're real independent, that we're kind of like rugged, maverick cowboys, kind of like doing our own thing, and no one can really tell us what to do, and we know how to do it differently than everybody else. But you're like, at the end of the day, these roads have been paved for us, right? Like someone has been successful somewhere in Instagram, Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn. Like you said, your friend that told you get a coach, right? That broke through and became a millionaire and all that. They're dead on, because you're like, a coach has fought the battles and knows what minefields to avoid to help you get there. And so I just did Darren's strategy at the beginning of like, it's the same thing of like, okay, I have my ICP. And for me as a founder, I did like smaller sample size, right? Darren's doing his number's crazy, 50 a day, right? Like something, he was like going ham, right?
Yeah,
I think was he 20? He was doing DMs. He was doing, I want to say he was doing 50 a day, right? Not all video, right? Or audio, but a lot. So all his 50, I was telling myself, I'm going to do 10 total DMs a day, and I'm going to do 3 to 5 video or audio, right? And I think it was like, I think I would tell people to start with, I think the difference is starting with audio, because as you and I both know, like even in Darren's cohort, it's funny watching people talk. They're like, I don't know how I feel about being on camera or like making a video, right? I think audio is a lot easier to begin with, right? So you're not as worried about like, how does it sound? How do I look on the selfie? You're like, what's this doing? And so for me, it was just starting with just audio, right? And on LinkedIn, you're limited to about 60 seconds, right? They have a 60-second break, right? So a lot of times it would start with, I would do the same play. So the video DMs for everybody's listening is, right, they play into your overall strategy, right? If I'm just doing video DMs and nothing else, this is not going to work, right? What works is the holistic playbook, right? That like I was writing 5 times a week, every week for the past year, right? So I have written content every week for for a year, 5 times a week, And that's what I would tell anybody that's starting, especially founders that are listening, right? That want to know about marketing. You're like, yeah, you can like increase and do like 2 a day, or you can do 7 like Darren's done. But I think for most founders, because your time needs to be allocated to different places, to your team, to coaching, to relationships, right? There's a lot of other things. And I'm saying, hey, 5 to 10 hours a week, 4 to 5 posts a week. And I did the same kind of pillars, right? Where I like have a work history pillar, something that had nothing to do with work at all. Talking about my family, talking about just my story, how I grew up, or something I've learned from the past. And then I'd always cater something to my ICP though, right? Like, just the other day, I wrote to my ICP, I've hired over 40 executive assistants. There were only 3 questions in the interviews that actually mattered, right? So it was like, because I'm writing to my ICP, anybody who's thinking about executive assistants or wanting to do that, I'm writing to them, And usually the crazy part, Jordan, and I don't know if you saw this, what's hard for people mentally is that typically the stuff that you write for your ICP performs worse than your other stuff, right? Because, and I don't know if you saw that, you're like, but what happens is I'm writing to a even more specialized, like when I talk about sales, like if you and I talk about this, everybody and their mom who loves sales will like the post, right? They're like, ooh, he's talking to me. But I'm not selling to salespeople. I'm selling to founders, or I'm selling to businesses. So when I write the ICP stuff, or I used to say, dear entrepreneur, right? Or dear CEO, dear executive. I'd start like a lot of my hooks like that. Dear entrepreneur community, dear founder, dear CEO, dear executive. And then immediately write off people that aren't those things, right? So all of a sudden my base that I'm selling to got really specific, right? Hey, business owners, this is for you. So I wouldn't get as much impression or engagement, but those are the ones that typically generated the most revenue, right? Because the ICP was like, dang, he's writing to me and he's selling to me and I want to listen and pay attention, right? So what I would do is on those ICP days then, that I'm writing content specifically to a business owner who I want to sell to, right? What I would do is anybody that commented that was a business owner, let's say I got 15 comments that day, right? Then I would look through all those comments. And then of those comments, then I'd put them in my Sales Nav. And then I'd look at those people, the 15 people that commented, and go, all right, of the 15, 5 of them are business owners, right? And those 5 I can sell to. So then I would drop a DM. Hey, thanks so much for liking my post today. You know, I really, you know, I see you, you're a business owner. Man, I'd love, if you're ever like looking for an EA or want to have a future conversation, I'd love to have a conversation with you, right? So something low barrier, low entry. Hey, I just saw, thanks for liking my post. I did my research on you, right? I see that you're running this business and that this is it. Or, hey, we went to the same college, or, you know, any of the stuff we do in sales. I would love to have another conversation with you about EAs. Or I'd have like a leading question. Have you ever used an EA before? What's your process look like? Or I would find a point of connection. Have you ever read Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, right? And so I would look for something that would create a connection for us, and then I would DM that. So a lot of it was larger strategy, right? That the video, if you just do video DMs by themselves or audio, I don't think you're going to have actual response, right? You need to write content, good content. Ooh, can we say something that's like hard for people to hear? You know, I love those posts. I wrote this post the other day that was like, what I would tell you about LinkedIn if I wasn't afraid of hurting your feelings, you know? And you're like, most of the time you're just bad at writing. You know, like what I would tell people is you have to get better as a writer. You got to learn what it means to write a hook. You got to learn what it means to actually write compelling. Because I think people are like, no, I'm writing material. And I'm like, yeah, it's just not good. It's like a snooze fest. I was bored. I didn't want to click more. I didn't want to. What are you saying to me that's like creating an emotive response that makes me want to read your content, right? So you got to have good brand content. You got to be consistently writing. And you have to be reciprocally engaged, right? You got to like be engaging and writing high value comments on people's posts. You have to be going and finding new connections every day. You got to go, like, you know, my play was five posts a week at minimum, 10 high value comments a day, right? And then I was going to go find 10 new connections a day, right? Either through my feed or through something, or through a network, or through my my deep research time, right? And then I would do video DMs, right? Because then what made it easier is we were like, well, who do you DM? And it's like, well, someone that you've engaged on. Like, I wouldn't send a DM unless I've engaged on someone's post a couple times, or they had accepted my friend request. Or friend request, I like to use that. Accepted my LinkedIn request, right? Unless you've done that, I wouldn't send you a DM, right? Like, I would have to have some level of engagement and relational rapport that said, because then it makes it easier. Hey, Jordan, I saw your post the other day. Man, I love your tenacity chasing LinkedIn. Have you ever thought about getting an EA to support you on your CRM or anything else, right? That's how I'd sell you, is I would create a relationship. Then I would have, like, you're seeing me comment on your post. Jordan, great thoughts. Here's a, you know, and guys, what does high value mean? Everybody always says this, Jordan, add value, but no one ever defines it. Look, value is, in a comment, I say something that adds to the conversation, right? I ask a good question so I can continue the conversation so that it drives more eyes and impressions to that person. Or I connect them with someone I like. You know, one of the best ways you can serve other people in other companies, like, Jordan, if I'm on your post and I know a friend that needs marketing support, I would say, hey, John, at John Namey, friend of mine, have you ever seen Jordan's work on your post so that more people can see eyes? That's adding value, right? You saying, good thoughts, high five, fire emoji, lame. Those are not high value. Now, I'm not saying you can't do that, right? Do that occasionally, like for your friends, for people you're hyping up. I'm cool with that. But don't, like, add value, right? Make an introduction. Like, Jordan, if I'm sitting with you, one of the best ways before I even pitch you, right, on a video or audio DM would be like if I DM'd you with a friend of mine saying, hey, I just was a conversation this morning, Jordan. I know you do marketing. I wanted to introduce you to a friend of mine who's looking for that help. So all of a sudden you're like, who's this guy trying to help me get deals? I'm way more open to that person now selling me their product because I understand that they're trying to find and solve problems for me, right? So then I'm like, so I do that with you, Jordan. And then I'd say, hey, Jordan, video, audio, right? And then we can talk about, I want to hear more about what your experience has been so far. Because now you just got me rambling on my soapbox.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like that piece of it now, right, is now there's connection, right? And now you're like, oh man, they're high value comments. I have high visibility. They're staying after it. And then my DMs, my audio, video, we can talk more about like the style and all that stuff. But you're like, just like, you know, having something that we're connecting about, a post that you've done, a connection we know, something that allows that conversation to be furthered is important, right? So it's a whole playbook. The DMs by themselves can't coexist as a standalone. It has to be a part of a whole LinkedIn social selling strategy. That's how you're going to win. You don't win just by video DM, right? You have to win by the whole playbook being executed.
And I'll try and keep it within time because I think we only have 10 minutes left. But
I know. I'm like, how is it? I looked up and I was like, how is this possible that we've talked for 45 minutes?
No, but I love
That's crazy.
I love it. We're going to definitely do a part 2.
Absolutely. You're like, there's too much to talk about. You know, we haven't even got to.
It's crazy because again, like what you're saying, Scott, it's like I've been doing LinkedIn like all wrong, and I think so many people are doing LinkedIn all wrong. I don't think it's like just me.
Yes.
But to keep it with the from like let's say that you could say like which are the key components, because you say that everything kind of is like together. But if you could say which are like the key actions that you've done that have kind of taken like the biggest step forward for your business, what would you say that they've been?
Yeah, if I had to boil it down to people, I'd be like, look, you have to write, one, make sure your profile works, right? Like, look, don't like not tell a story with your profile. Does your header tell people what you do? Is it your company logo or something or whatever? Then make sure your headline is something, right? Like Darren's is so clear, right? I help people with LinkedIn social selling. Boom, right? And with mine, it's like I staff elite executive assistants and systems to founders, right? And I've played with it. I'm like always playing with it. I'm like, what are my hit rates, And then it's a link to my website or like time with me. And then my about me section is literally a sales copy script, right? Like people that are like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I've got 4 kids. And I'm like, dude, your people you're selling to don't care. I hate it. Your friends do and your mom does. But your people you're selling to don't care. They want to know, can you solve their problem, right? So if you go look at my about section, I start with, hey, I was drowning in admin, right? And hours of work at low level play and I burned out, right? So I'm selling, my whole profile is about selling. It's about the story, right? So I'd say upgrade your profile, get a coach for sure because it'll be 10 times faster. Then write consistently, right? You need to be writing 4 to 5 times a week. You need to do 10 high value comments a day. You need to do, and then you need to do 5 to 10 DMs every single day, right? Of the people you're chasing, And so in regards to, right? I mean, that's if I had to boil it down, that's what I'd say.
Which is also very, very important, is also the fact of sending over the follow-ups and how often you do it and what kind of tact do you use with follow-ups and keeping track.
Yeah, that's key. And, and to talk about video too, like, look, as you get comfortable, yes, I'm Darren style. Get outside, go walk around, send it like more casual, like, and also a little nugget for everybody that Darren talks about that, look, if you're selling into the C-suite, right, wait till 2 things that are really important that most people miss. Send these videos or audio messages at night, right? Let me tell you something as a founder. I'm so buried in things all day that sometimes I'll jump on my LinkedIn. It's usually early in the morning or late at night. That's typically like, look, my posts are going out 6 a.m., 7 a.m. It's usually early. Like I'm usually earlier before the workday. And then I'll get on maybe at light to see like if there's anybody else, like, kind of pinging around. And so you're like, wait till their green dot is on, like see if they're live, right? Like that's a hack, right? When someone's on or not. So then do that. And then like, look, I'm with Darren. I think it gets too hard when you start getting a high volume to understand, like putting them in your CRM is difficult, right? Unless you've got an assistant, who's doing your CRM for you. Like a lot of it's just looking through all your DMs and like looking at everybody, like scrolling through and going, okay, I sent these 10, and really prioritizing those 10 a week, right? And maybe there's some more priority clients. But I'm a big fan of like, look, I mean, what's the average sales rate? They need 7 to 9 touches before someone buys from you. You're like, so what's that look like? What's me commenting on 2 or 3 of their posts so they see me? And it's like I'm probably going to follow up, after the first message. I might follow up a couple days after, because I don't want to feel like the too eager boyfriend material, right? That you're like, no, like, aren't you want to play it cool, right? All right, like, I'm not in any rush. I'm not in any rush here. Like, we can play it slow, but I like the, like, hey, one more time in the week, and then one more time following up the next week with more engagement, right? And changing it up. One day audio. I'm not going to send 3 video messages back to back to back, right? I'm going to do 1 text, 1 audio, 1 video. Change it up. Hey, was thinking about you. I'm walking out, grabbing a meal right now at lunch, and saw this thing, and man, it just made me realize I needed to do this. And also, I think the thing that's important is, like, so change it up on the style, and then don't say follow up. Hey, just following up. That is terrible. Don't just follow up. Go do more research on the product. Say, hey, I saw, one of my favorite things to do, like selling into AI companies, right? One of my favorite things right now is the NAMDA study just came out from MIT that said 95% of AI companies that use generative AI aren't producing revenue. It's not working. Of the 5% that are, have human involved, right? Human in the loop. So all these people are like, AI is killing EAs, right? That's what people tell me. AI is going to come for assistance. I'm like, maybe one day, but I'm like, what the data right now is showing me that 95% of people that are using AI in their company, it's not working for nor generating revenue. So what I'll do is I'll go find something in the space, Jordan, that's like if I saw something about marketing, like someone using AI from, like, how to use AI in innovative ways for marketing, I would send that to you and go, hey, I'm out walking around. I saw this article, made me think about you. Hope you enjoy. That's it. Nothing about my product, nothing about me selling to you. Just, I thought about you and you're on top of my mind. And here's a helpful, high value resource that will help you in your world, right? So that is one of my favorite follow-ups of on LinkedIn is go find great articles that are being posted, or someone that posted a really great article, and send that to the person you're trying to sell to, right? And I think that's such an overlooked thing of, like, add value to me. Show me you've thought about my business, right? And show that you know enough to care, not to know necessarily about me, though that's important, but more about what problems that I'm facing right now, So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's what I've been doing.
Helpful. So we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up with like one last question, because I think we only have time for one more. But I definitely wanted to. Man, I do want to do a part 2, Scott. That's, I know. Really, really good.
We have to do like part. This is gonna be like Lord of the Rings tree. We might have to do a trilogy. I think it's gonna get like we're gonna be going deep here.
At the last one, what was the last one? The last one was Return of the King.
Yes.
That's when
Ooh,
you make
so good.
You go past the $10 million mark.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm at 10 million ARR, then we come back and have another combo.
Awesome. So because there's 2, but I think I can put in for one. But this is the last question that we usually ask people whenever we sign off, and it's basically, if you could give advice to your 25-year-old self, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah. Oh my gosh! And if you can hear, hold on, babe, I'll be there in a minute. I have my one youngest here hanging out with me. I was like, Dad's on a call for an hour. We're gonna party.
3 minutes.
You know what I tell everybody is that, man, I'm gonna go a totally different way, maybe, Jordan, than like, because are you wanting that from a business perspective? Like, who am I answering the question to? I always tell people, like, your audience is the most important thing to think about when you give wisdom or share thoughts. 25-year-old who? In sales or in general? I would tell people life is short. I lost both my parents when I was younger, right? And I'm like, look, life is short. You have like, go to 4kweeks.com. It's like how your average lifespan, the average person lives 4,000 weeks, right? I think so many of us, when we're young, especially 25, you feel invincible. You're like, the world's in front of me. I can put off for tomorrow. And you're like, don't put off for tomorrow. Like, the dream you're chasing, go chase it. The relationship you want to try, go take a shot at it, even if you get rejected. The thing you've been putting, like, don't put off for tomorrow what can be done today, right? And don't be afraid, because you're like, look, everybody's going to die. Like, the people you're so worried about, like, I think about when I was 25, how much I cared about what other people thought and how foolish that is. Like, because guess what? And you want to talk about business practical application, is that bleeds into everything. Like people don't want to write on LinkedIn because it feels cringy, because they're worried about what people are going to say. You know how much crap I got at the beginning? People were like, oh, here's the LinkedIn guy. Here's the LinkedIn person. And I'm like, sucker, here's the LinkedIn guy that sold over $1 million on LinkedIn. Like, come at me now, right? And so a lot of that's getting over what people care about and think about you, because the only thing that's really important is what you think about yourself, understanding that life is short and you need to chase the things that you want to chase, and to love the people that actually are going to be there. Because let me tell you, I love work, maybe too much at times, right? But you're like, I've been to a lot of funerals, right? And I've been to my loved ones' funerals. And you know who's actually there is your friends and family, not your coworkers, right? Like, look, I'm not saying don't build amazing relationships with coworkers and have that, but the people in your life that you want to care about is like the people that are going to be there when you're old and gray and in your sick bed are going to be like your parents and your kids and those that love you and your friends. And so don't neglect, as you're building on the way up, don't neglect those relationships. Don't neglect the dreams that are inside of you, because you may not have as long as you think you do, right? So that's what I would tell people. Life is short. Enjoy the ride and actually chase what you want.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate having you on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I didn't even get to ask you any questions I had about all the social. We're gonna have to like jump on multiple calls after this offline so I can learn more about the other spaces. But I really appreciate, thank you for the thoughtful questions, the relationship we're building online through LinkedIn of all places. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity and really appreciate the time.
Likewise, Scott. Stay on for this 1 minute. I'm gonna stop the live streams just so they can finish downloading. It's pretty quick. And
yeah, you're good.
Thanks so much, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, same. Enjoyed it.